Back last year in November, I started working on a game. The game was a 2D arena battler roguelike. The main mechanic was supposed to be gems which modify weapon effects to create cool combat with lots of possibilities. In the end though, I guess I got bored and never really got very far. Last month, however, I got the itch to try to work on the game again, but this time I decided to do the smart thing and rush to an MVP. I would use the same concept, but this time I gave myself 1 week to make a vertical slice with a working game loop. Which, yeah, when has that ever worked for you? But anyways, I got to work. I was still going to use Jai because screw engines, am I right? Which meant I needed to write rendering and other stuff myself. To write such a system yourself, you need quite a bit of math and programming knowledge, and today's sponsor Brilliant is a great resource for this. Brilliant is the best way to learn about math, data science, and computer science interactively. Seriously, you can take things at your own pace, as fast or as slow as you like. Whatever your skill level is, Brilliant offers courses for everyone and customizes to fit your own needs. New lessons are also added every month. I especially loved their linear algebra course for getting some hands-on solving experience along with satisfying intuition. Since graphics programming needs a lot of linear algebra, I really recommend giving it a go. You can get started for free for the first 30 days by going to brilliant.org/voxelrips. The first 200 people who click the link in the description get 20% off on Brilliant's annual subscription. Thanks again to Brilliant for sponsoring this video, and with that, back to my game. Firstly, one of the things that I got from my previous attempt was that my game was going to be way too system heavy. Partly because of me not using an engine, but more because of the game being real time, and that in itself can cause things to be a lot more complex. Now this isn't a bad thing, but I had given myself 1 week at the time, which meant that I needed to do something simpler. So I decided on a turn-based and tile-based system, which meant collision detection and resolution, and more dynamic things were not going to cause me any problems. So I added in a 6x6 tile grid along with a player on top and made the little guy slide and turn nicely. After adding this basic stuff, I needed to come up with a style. Now, I don't know if it's obvious or not, but I'm pretty bad at art. Like, look at this little guy. They literally do not have legs. Ruined that for you, didn't I? But in any case, I need the game to actually look appealing. More than realism, in my opinion, games look better if they are consistent and stylized. So I decided to stick with 8x8 textures. Now this in itself won't look really cool, but along with that, I used a neat little trick. Instead of rendering the game to the screen directly, I render it to a texture. However, this texture is small. This causes a lot of resolution to be lost. This is normally a bad thing, but who cares? We can map this texture onto the screen with the nearest filter, which causes things to be more jagged and aliased. Normally, many games implement anti-aliasing, which gets rid of this jaggedness, but this makes the 8x8 textures seem a lot more detailed. To make the jaggedness stand out even more, I gave tiles a bit of rotation as well. Moving on, combat is a pretty central part of the game, so I added a sword and made it so that you can attack. The sword allows you to attack not only straight ahead, but also on both the forward diagonals. In doing so, I saw this cool little bug, which happened when I was just trying to make the tiles show that they were being hit. After that, I implemented an axe, which just attacks straight ahead. Now you might be thinking, what on earth could be gained by using an axe or a sword? It just seems like a worse weapon. And you're right. At that time, I was pretty much running out of ideas on how to make the game interesting. But then I remembered the bug that I just had and realized one way. The tiles can store some data. More specifically, how broken they are. So, a tile could start breaking if a weapon attacks that spot. If the tile is hit 4 or 3 times, it breaks, making the player unable to walk there. This makes it so that having a weapon that attacks fewer tiles is both good and bad. since you don't want to break too many tiles, but you also want to, how should I put this, not die to enemies. So I implemented that, and also gems for a test, and onyx gem, which teleports you ahead if it can. Another thing that I wanted to do was make things more methodical and thought out. The way I had things configured, you could use arrow keys to move around. If you weren't looking in a direction you wanted to go, you would have to first look in that direction with an additional action. So, instead of that, I decided to add 3 buttons: move, see, and attack. You can move or look in any direction. However, you can only attack ahead or to the left and right. There is a mechanic behind this as well. If you attack to the left, only the first gem will be applied. If you attack to the right, only the second gem will be applied. Whereas if you attack straight ahead, there is a different combo system that I don't want to really spoil, so you'll just have to try it out when the game comes out. After that, I added proper turns. Below the weapon sprite, there are cooldown pips, which show how many actions you have in a turn. After your actions run out, the enemy moves or attacks. I also added health. I experimented with health bars, but they just didn't look right, nor did they make it clear how much actual HP an enemy or you had. So, instead, I opted for a number of hearts method. And to make that work, I had to implement my own font, instead of using something like STVTTF. The implementation is exceptionally easy with the compile time capabilities of Jai. I made it so that the character small h mapped to the heart symbol, so I could embed it in any text I wanted. The power of custom things, let's just say. After this, I changed the arrows to reflect what mode you were in and made it clearer with what gem you were going to attack. At this point, the game's base was set, and I needed to add the thing that I disliked the most, and that is content. You see, roguelikes are make or break based on content, synergies, and upgrades. If upgrades don't reward people appropriately, people will not like your game. So, I went ahead and implemented a few gems and a few items as well. For some of these ideas, the tiles wanted a status effect, like a flamethrower, which set tiles on fire. So, I added that. After that, of course, I needed a way to get items and gems and weapons to the player. For this, I implemented a shop, where you could view descriptions of things and spend money gathered by causing destruction. At this point, I had all the systems. I just had to tie them together and close this loop. To do this, I decided to keep things as simple as possible. We can start with the game, and when all the enemies are defeated, swap to the shop. Then when done, swap back to the next level. For the MVP, I just decided to increase the number of enemies every level. After doing that and adding a scuffed ending scene, the core of the game is complete. There's so much that I could and want to add here. More weapons, gems, items, enemies, maybe even bosses actually, better graphics for indicating special effects and so on, but I'll save that for another video. If you want to playtest the game, I'm running a limited one on Discord right now, so that I can catch any bugs and other things before moving on to more stuff. That being said, that's all for today. See you next time.